will look back at our text for a different purpose. If you remember from yesterday, it is such a great strategy to create a picture in your head while reading to form a nice visual of the characters and setting. This strategy may help with today's focus. Our purpose for reading today is to use details and examples in the text to clearly explain what the text says. We'll be using our inferencing skills as well to help us. Before we begin, I do want to introduce this concept of figurative language to you. Some of you may have heard it, and that's awesome. I am going to go over it just to refresh my memory as well as maybe some friends. Figurative language are words that mean something different than their literal meaning. There are many types of figurative language. If you take a look at the picture below, we have similes, metaphors, alliteration, personification, onomatopoeias, idioms, and hyperboles. There are so many different types of figurative language that are so great as readers to help us visualize the text. For today's focus, we're specifically going to look at personification. Take a look at my blue arrow to where it's pointing. Personification is when authors give human qualities or traits to non-human items. If you look at my example, I wrote, "The stars in the sky winked at me." In this case, the non-human item are the stars. And the trait, the human trait that was given to them is the fact that they winked, because we know that stars literally can't wink. However, this creates a picture in my head that the author is trying to describe twinkling. So this is just a nice, fun way that authors use figurative language to help us again create that picture in our head. Keep this figurative language in mind as we look at today's lesson. Paragraph 9. All about me, giant grasshoppers twice as big as any I had ever seen were doing acrobatic feats among the dried vines. The gophers scurried up and down the plowed ground. There, in the sheltered draw bottom, the wind did not blow very hard, but I could hear it singing its humming tune up on the level, and I could see the tall grasses wave. The earth was warm under me, and warm as I crumbled it through my fingers. I'm using the graphic organizer now to help me organize my thinking. Notice how this graphic organizer is broken down. First, they want us to write down the specific sentence that had the example of personification. Then, we're actually going to write down the personification. The last box is what image did it create? So what did you picture based off the example? So the sentence that I copied from the actual text says, all about me, giant grasshoppers, twice as big as any I had ever seen, were doing acrobatic feats among the dried vines. Next, in the personification box, I wrote down the specific example of personification. So I wrote, grasshoppers doing acrobatic feats or stunts. Then, in my own words, I wrote down what image did it create for me. So I wrote, the grasshoppers were jumping up and down. Paragraph 9. All about me, Giant grasshoppers, twice as big as any I had ever seen, were doing acrobatic feats among the dried vines. The gophers scurried up and down the plowed ground. There, in the sheltered draw bottom, the wind did not blow very hard, but I could hear it singing its humming tune up on the level, and I could see the tall grasses wave. The earth was warm under me, and warm as I crumbled it through my fingers. All right, it's your turn. If you remember, I said that there are a couple of examples in paragraph 9 that show personification. As you can see, I left my annotations of the first personification that we found with the grasshoppers doing acrobatic feats. What if I were to say there was one more example of personification in this same paragraph? If you need to, you can go ahead and click to listen to the story again, or you can read it on your own. Then I would like you to drag the arrow next to the sentence or example where you found personification. How'd you do? I have the sentence that you should have dragged the arrow to. It says, "There in the sheltered draw bottom, the wind did not blow very hard, but I could hear it singing its humming tune up on the level, and I could see the tall grasses wave." Now, what's awesome about this sentence is not only is it an example of personification, but there are two different personifications within this one sentence. I highlighted both of them to help to refer to as a guidance. So the first thing that I highlighted was the fact that they're saying that the tall grass is singing its humming tune. The next example was the tall grasses wave. Here's what I would like you to do. In the personification box, I want you to pick between the two which personification would you like to jot down. Type your answer in the box. Then, based on the example you chose, I want you to write down what image did you get when you heard or read that specific example. Then write your answer in the image it creates box. Wow, I am so amazed. Next week, we will look back at our previous text, A Bird's Free Lunch, and compare it to today's text. Get ready because next week's lesson is about point of view. Are you ready?